Hey everyone, how you doing? This is the Sports Counterpoints podcast. Today is July the 8th, 2025. I'm Glenn, aka GB. I got Brian and Coop. What's going on, my guys?
What's going on, fellas?
Man,
I'm here.
yeah, we back at it. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Back with another edition of the Sports Counterpoint Show. Shout out to any new subscribers. Appreciate every single one of you. Anybody who's been subscribing and listening for a while, we appreciate you as well. Just thank everybody who spends any amount of time with us. It's overly appreciated as we talk sports, something that we all love. And yes, we're gonna get into it. So we're talking the Lakers had some signings. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about a new coach of the Knicks. We'll talk about Jrue Holiday and Anthony Simmons, Kirk Cousins, Darren Waller, some other trades in the NFL. First, though, I text this to you guys. I wanted to get your real quick to start this thing out. Give me why you love sport, and then your best or favorite personal sports achievement.
Why I love sport. I like the competition aspect, I would say. I mean, I'm just into competition. I know I don't like to lose, and I appreciate athletes like, like Jordan, like Kobe, like Magic, who don't like to lose. And if they do lose, they really take it personal, and it kind of haunts within them. It burns within them to go back out there and prove themselves. So I guess I would say probably the competition is the reason why, because I know I'm a competitive person and don't like to lose in anything. Of course, we know it happens, but I think that's why I love sports. And then I think my best personal achievement, I would say my first game on varsity, playing against a school called McAteer. It was first game of the season. I had scored 41
Damn.
in that game. That wasn't the highest I've ever scored in a game, but it proved I worked the reason why that game specifically sticks out is because I couldn't shoot until about my junior year in high school. And I had to kind of work on my game. I had spent a lot of time in the summertime working on my game by myself to get better so I could play varsity and be an effective player, I would say, or a starter, whatever, which I was. And so when I came out that first game and had 41, it was more of a validation that the work that I put in really helped to me to get to that point. Never had really plans after that to play college, but because I didn't really plan to go to college after high school. So, but to see that, I guess all that work put in kind of paid off, and I had a decent season that year. So I would say that that would be my best accomplishment.
That's dope. I never knew that. That's tight. B?
Yeah, for me, it's also the competition, but kind of in a different way. The sports that I seem to have gravitated to are usually individual competitive sports and individual competitive events. Track, kind of an individual thing, although you have relays. Golf now. I've played a lot of basketball, but the things that I was best at were always individual because I am willing to push myself far further than I feel like my teammates would ever be able to willing to push themselves. And so, the individual thing made it so that I didn't have to worry about what other people would do, and I could just do me. And that was other events that had nothing to do with sports. But anyways, yeah, it's definitely the competition. I always respect the competitive fire that I saw in people like Kobe, who always had that competitive fire. Michael Jordan too. Um, yeah, some of the other folks who could do it with a grin. I'm not sure I'm cool with that, but they do it. I like Larry Bird. Kind of a fish out of water, talking trash, but also being excellent. So yeah, and then I like stories, just general. I like stories, and sports has so many of them. Success stories,
True.
kids who came from serious situations and were able to succeed. I on the flip side, I like stories enough that even when something goes crazy, the intrigue of that is there. I honestly don't know. I'm lucky enough to have more options on what my favorite event was as a kid. It was probably, I think I went my entire senior year without losing an event in a dual meet throughout high school. So that was the entire season doing 4 events for every dual meet. And I didn't lose a single time. That was cool. And then just personally, I can't remember, Glenn, if you were there, but I had a golf round where I had 2 eagles in the same round. That was kind of cool. That was fun.
That's pretty cool. Nice. That's
I
what's up.
kind of want to double down on what Brian said about the stories.
Yeah.
Just real quick.
Yeah.
A lot of times when people, these great players that we've seen and we know of, they all from the beginning they weren't, I guess, picked to be great, or people didn't know they were going to be great, which makes it cool. Like I could start with Curry. Nobody thought that a small, guard from Davidson University was going to be able to change basketball and be so impactful in the league. Nobody saw that coming. And be honest with you, nobody saw the Michael Jordan thing coming. I mean, people knew Michael Jordan was good in college, but he wasn't as good as he became. You didn't see that. Yeah, that just kind of took people out of nowhere. Kobe's another one. We had a lot of guys come out of high school and they did their thing, but Kobe was on another level. And it's hard to do being a guard coming out of high school. Usually most guys that come out of high school are big men, 6'10", 6'11", centers, power forwards, whatever. And Kobe was a guard, that did it. And that's not easy. I've always said for Kobe, he's the only player in NBA history to go from being a true number 2 on a championship team to being a true number 1 on a championship team and actually winning it. I mean, that's never happened before. Usually guys that are 2s, they never become a 1 and then win a title. Kobe was the only one to ever do that. So, guys just coming out of nowhere with stories like that. I mean, even my favorite player, Magic Johnson. I mean, the Lakers were split. Now Jerry West, I think, told a story years ago. They were split. Jerry West had to convince people in the Lakers organization because they were split 50-50. I think they wanted to get Mark Aguirre or somebody like that. And Jerry West was like, no, I want to get Magic. I guess he convinced Jerry Buss to get him because it was unheard of for somebody that tall to play point guard in the NBA. It just knew it wouldn't work, and it ended up working out. So, the stories, like Brian said, is another thing I like about sports as well.
I love that. That's tight. I was just curious, man. That was pretty awesome. I learned about y'all some more today, and I known y'all for my damn near entire life.
What about you?
Cool. For me,
yeah, about you, yeah, for sure.
So the entertainment factor, obviously, right? I was actually talking to Mom about this. The fact that during a game, like especially an important game, it's happened during Lakers, it's happened during Raider games. I literally can feel the whole range of emotions dang near during the course of a game. I mean, obviously I'm not actually angry, I'm going to break something, but you could be mad, you could be happy, you're excited, you're, pensive. Like it's just so many things that go on. The connection that I have with my teams, and it's crazy. I say my teams, I think a lot of us do that when we talk about our team, we say we, I mean, we drafted, we did. Like I've never played a down of football, but you couldn't tell me I'm not on the Raiders in a lot of them scenarios. The history that ties into it, right? The connection with family for me. My grandfather was a Raider fan. My dad's a Raider fan. So that kind of stuff is cool. But it's entertaining. And then the other thing for me is I love it because it's subjective and objective. You get your personal opinion and you could say, I like this guy versus this guy. And then I can come back with, well, his stats don't substantiate your claim that he is better than this guy. Certain quarterbacks I do that with. What, Evan?
I said Herbert's great.
Yeah, exactly. So, all of that, man. I don't know. I love sport, and it kind of ties in everything, man. During the Olympics, I'm watching stuff I wouldn't normally watch for the competitive nature of it, and to see people that are the best in the world do anything at their craft is pretty awesome, especially in a sports situation. And I'm with you guys on the Kobe's, the Jordans, Tom Brady, who I hated for years because he was against my team. And I feel like we were the springboard to their dynasty via some controversy, but that was somebody who is obsessive with the game and with being great. And I don't think we see that in a lot of everyday life. I know there's not a lot of aspects of my life where I'm pushing to be the absolute utmost best and I'm like completely obsessed with it. So it's cool to see. Best sports moment, I'm with Brian. Last year I had 2 rounds where I shot in the 70s, and it just kind of, golf is amazing because it's all these different lessons you learn. It's patience, it's control, it's mental fortitude. It's so many things, right? And to be shooting in the 90s, maybe an 80 here and there, and then a 77 or a 78 is like just everything just worked out. Putts dropped, shots from the fairway were hitting the green. Like it's an amazing feeling to kind of be in that flow state, especially to have to do it over 4 hours. So Definitely, that's my favorite sports moment in that scenario. So that's cool. I appreciate that. I'm gonna try and think of some more questions like this. It's cool to see those other sides of the hosts, and also that you guys actually were athletes too. I didn't mean like that. I didn't mean like it was like a long time ago. I just was saying because we were talking about high school. So cool, man.
Oh,
Thank you guys for indulging me on that. Let's get to it, man. So talking about we had a list. We already talked about KD going to the Rockets, what that means or doesn't really mean. Let's start. B was saying the Lakers re-signed Jaxon Hayes. We get Deandre Ayton. What do you guys think about those two moves?
Bro, what's the mood down there?
I think it's all over the place. I mean, DeAndre Ayton is not exactly a superstar. He was a top draft pick. He was drafted in the same draft as Luka. So fortunes have certainly diverged and now come back. There's plenty of people who think it was a horrible idea. There's plenty of people who think it was a wonderful idea. I land somewhere in the middle. I think you get a motivated Ayton. I mean, he's got his money, but he's also playing on kind of a low deal for a top draft pick, and so he'll be motivated. Historically, and while he was playing for the Suns, he was one of the best those 2 seasons, he was the best pick and roll center in basketball. And that is kind of what they were looking for Luka. So, there's a possibility that could work out. Again, I don't have a lot of high aspirations for this team, and I don't think Ayton takes us from, going out in the first round to NBA champions. But I think it was a relatively decent decision. They had waited so long with free agency that Ayton was by far the best option left on the market, other than our own players. And I guess we'll be talking about, the re-signing of Jaxon Hayes and those other things in a minute. But when you add them all together, Adu Tiro, the draft pick, Jaxon Hayes, and DeAndre Ayton, I at least understand the vision. Okay, so what about you?
Yeah, I feel like you. I'm in the middle on it. It doesn't make us a championship team. I wasn't, excited or whatever, or feeling sad about it. It's just, it's a very minimal impact move to me, but doesn't bring us closer to a championship. So it didn't mean much to me.
I gotta be real, man. I don't know Jaxon Hayes like that.
I thought we were talking about Ayton. I was talking about Ayton.
I mentioned them both.
Yeah.
Ayton, I've heard of him, but I ain't never. I mean, I've seen him play some good games. Because wasn't he on that Phoenix team that went to the finals
Who?
a few years
Ayton?
ago? Yeah.
Ayton?
Ayton?
Yeah,
No. He was?
Yeah.
I thought.
Oh, Phoenix. Oh, yeah, he did. They played the Bucks and found. That's right.
He's just been in Portland for a split second.
Yeah.
But talking about Jaxon Hayes just briefly, he is an athletic guy who can play well in spots, but he was always better suited to be our backup center than our center. And that's now the role that he'll have. And I think he'll do quite well in it. He's tall, he's springy, he likes to play above the rim. You can get him a bunch for alley-oops. He actually runs the court. He's not the greatest pick and roll player. He's more of an open court player, but that gives Luka different opportunities to play different ways at certain times. And then, Adu Tiro, who is a forward, but he is just known. The only thing he's really known for is just having massive hops and just being super springy. And I think he was like one of the leaders in alley-oops and dunks off the pass in college. So, I see what they're trying to do. Luka said, I like to play in the open court, and I like to play with people who I can alley-oop and pass, and that's the style that he has said he wants to play. So the team made a concentrated effort to go get him, especially after the trade fell flat in the middle of the season, who was from another player who was supposed to be springy. I guess they decided that they could create the collective through multiple players and giving them, different types of minutes. But like I said, I don't know that it's going to work. I don't think that they're a championship team based on these things right here. I guess we should probably have added to our list. We should be talking about this LeBron drama. But for right now, at least I understand their vision.
Yeah. What's the LeBron drama?
Well, right after LeBron signed his deal, his agent said LeBron will be keeping an eye on all the moves that the Lakers make to make decisions on his future. Except for they did that after he signed his 1 year, his 1 year option. And it was basically, there's been tons and tons of speculation that he might ask for a trade. And so there's been article after article after article talking about, will LeBron end up in Dallas? Will LeBron go back to Cleveland? Will LeBron go to the Knicks? My own feelings on it are he signed that. He signed the deal because he knew that he wasn't getting $52 million from anybody else in his career. And then if he wants to go and ask for a trade, someone still has to be willing to pay him $52 million and give up players that amount to $52 million. Pretty close to it with trade exception, and picks. There is no market, and this is not a knock on LeBron, who is going to go down top 5 player and all that other garbage. So be it. But this is not a knock on him. This is just a reality check that all these people who are talking about, LeBron might want to go to Cleveland, blah, blah, blah. He might want to do this, he might want to do that. No one cares what LeBron wants to do anymore. He's not at the point in his career where he gets to make all those decisions and make that happen. I also thought it was just a cowardly thing to have come out through your agent the same day that you sign your 1 year option. But that's kind of always been my thought on LeBron, is that he's never going to be one of the greats for that reason. He might be one of the most talented top 5 skilled player ever, certainly the best physical specimen that the sport has ever seen. But when it comes to being the greatest, there's intangibles that he doesn't have, and has shown numerous times that he doesn't have it.
I don't believe. I remember right after, I don't know, maybe a day, probably 2 days at the most later, the agent, it was an article out saying that teams have contacted the Lakers about LeBron, which I don't believe. I just think that came from Rich Paul. But there's definitely not a market for LeBron. Nobody's giving up that kind of money and giving up players for LeBron right now. He's not that kind of player, as you said. He doesn't have that kind of power. His time as far as maneuvering and trying to get players and doing all that type of mess, it's over. He had his time where he did that. Now his talent doesn't warrant that anymore. So I believe this will be his last year with the Lakers, thankfully, and we can kind of move on from that and see what we can do in the future. Because there's, no need.
I agree with you. Yeah. I mean, that expiring $52 million creates a lot of cap space to sign a bunch of players
that can actually help us.
That can actually, that are going to win going forward. LeBron's window has closed.
Right.
Dang. Father Time, undefeated. I'm curious to see, though. I'm wondering I think LeBron maybe got 2 years max, but I wouldn't be surprised.
No, I think he's got 5 years. I mean, he also said somewhere, or got quoted somewhere on his podcast or the boardroom or whatever. He said that his wife wants him to retire in the next year or so. But
I saw that.
Then he got asked by a player on his team, like, how long you think? He's like, I think I got 5 more years. So, with players towards the end of their thing, you get a spectrum. He's not retiring tomorrow, and he's probably not going to last 5 years, but it's probably somewhere in the middle there.
Well, no, I mean, it's going to be a big announcement, because it's definitely going to be a farewell tour like no other. When LeBron goes out, like, they're going to roll out the red carpets. So we'll know. I just figured too, because do you still want to go through the grind? You know what I mean? At some point, you're kind of like, if you're not on a team that's going to win a championship, you're going to play 82 games and travel and do all that. Like, at some point, you could go focus on the business.
If you really wanted to win a championship, you would have said, okay, not this year or next year. I'm going to play for the veterans minimum or 10 mil or whatever it is. Go take this $42 million that I take off the books and get me a championship team for one more season. We'll call it's my farewell tour. It's my, by the Lakers, and we will do whatever we can to build. They could have easily, if he didn't sign that option, they could have gone and got Durant, and then it could have been
or Giannis or something,
or one of those guys. Yep. So the winning thing has a lot to do with himself not recognizing. And here's the thing: players deserve all their money. Like he wasn't. It was impossible to pay him what he was worth to the league and to the team earlier on, especially when he was in Cleveland in his rookie years. So I understand that if you look at it in the overall scheme of things, he deserves all of that money. But if you want to win a championship, you can't be a $52 million hole on the defense, on the team.
Solid. Okay. Interesting. I like it. What about the Jrue Holiday? Oh, well, excuse me. Let's go Mike Brown to the Knicks. I know you guys are really excited about that. What do you think that's going to do?
Man, Mike Brown got another job. I mean, I guess past results don't mean anything. Look, Mike Brown is
He's
a
coach
good
of the year, bro. A year ago.
Yeah, a lot of people are coach of the year and they get fired a couple of years later, like Byron Scott. But look, Mike Brown is a good coach for a young team that's trying to find their way in the NBA, because Mike Brown's teams usually play hard every single night in the NBA. You can get wins in the NBA by playing hard every night, because veteran teams don't bring it every night. They mail it in a lot of games. So Mike Brown's a good coach for a young up and coming team to try to make their way to the playoffs for, seventh, eighth seed, whatever. And then the following year or the following seasons, what happens to Mike Brown is everybody takes his team seriously. The team, they look out for them now, and they kind of get worse as time goes by, and he ends up getting fired.
What happens? Yeah.
And the thing about Mike Brown and Thibodeau, I think Brian said this in the text chain, they're kind of, I think Thibodeau's slightly better, but they're just kind of the same coach. And Thibodeau, people are upset why he got fired, talking about the New York Knicks made it, to whatever. And it's just like, I don't know if people actually watched basketball, watched the Knicks. If you see the Knicks in crunch time situations, they did not have an offense. It was give it to Jalen Brunson and get out the way. That's not going to work every single time. You got to have some type of ball movement in crunch moments of the game. And Thibodeau's a defensive coach, and they was giving up hella points to Indiana. So it's like, you can't be a defensive coach and giving up 120 in the playoffs and, expect the people, to get, to keep your job just because you got to the second round or wherever it was in the NBA playoffs. So I think that the firing was justified. I just didn't think that they would get Mike Brown. I don't think he gets them over the hump. I think he probably might do a little worse, might just go to the first round or whatever. I don't know, but I definitely don't think that the Knicks will win the championship with Mike Brown as a coach, because I've seen him with veterans. It just doesn't work out too well for him. It works out a lot better when he has a bunch of, young guys in the league trying to make their way. But Brian, I don't know how you feel about it.
Well, if you remember back in the middle of the season, I said that I thought Thibodeau might have to go because teams he wears out players, and
he did that too.
That's what happened. And when you have a guy who wears out players, there's always an overcorrection to a guy who gets along with his players really well. Enter Mike Brown. Mike Brown has always been well respected by most of the people that he has coached. I think LeBron being the exception.
Probably Kobe too.
And Mike Brown's a good guy and a solid coach. The problem that the Knicks figured out pretty quickly is that there just isn't a lot of talent out there that's available. And so they went and they're like, oh, we got to get rid of Thibodeau. He's burnt out the players. And then they do that and they're like, oh, wait a minute, who are we actually about to hire? And so if you look at the people who are available to be your new head coach, he may very well have been, he's certainly top three. He clearly knows how to interview well. He has, again, a coach of the year in the recent future. I don't think that this helps them win. It certainly doesn't make them a championship team. And I think it's one of those situations where they jumped and then looked for their parachute and realized there were none. And that's how you end up with Mike Brown. Again, no knock on Mike Brown. He's a good coach, but he's not the guy that's going to win you a championship.
Yeah, well, remember, Brian, the Knicks I think Mike Brown was like their 6th or 7th choice. Remember, they were contacting other teams like Dallas for Jason Kidd and some other coaches to see if the teams would let them interview him first, and they said no. And so
that's what happens when you fire the guy and then reach out to
right. That's the Knicks, though. They don't have a plan. I mean, that's why they're the Knicks. They fire somebody and then they just hope for the best. So, yeah. Yep. There it is.
Okay. I don't really have any. I think y'all said it all. I was going to say, didn't he took that Cavs team to the finals, but they got swept that year with LeBron, right?
It was with LeBron. LeBron carried that team. Yeah, but remember when LeBron left, they went back to being the worst team in the league as soon as he left.
And he coached us, but I don't remember. We didn't. I mean, we obviously
had Dwight Howard, I think, and Kobe, and it just didn't work.
He
I don't
might have
think
been the
Kobe was a
coach when
fan
me and
either
Brian
him.
went to the game.
Yeah, I don't think Kobe was a fan of him either.
Man, we had a run, man. We had him, we had D'Antoni, we had some boys out there.
We had Rudy T at one point. So, yeah.
Yeah, crazy. So
Yep.
okay, so you got Mike Brown, and then Jrue Holiday goes to Portland for Anthony Simmons. And Brian said that the trade was altered to remove the second. There was 2 second-round picks, but they removed one after Jrue Holiday's physical. What do you think about that?
Yeah.
I have no opinion.
Yeah, one last thing. If you look at the last few years, you're almost better at taking a coach who has no pedigree over someone who has a pedigree. Missoula, Malone, Budenholzer, Bogan, Nurse, Lou, Kerr, Spoelstra, who's kind of a Carlisle doc. These are all recent people who have won championships who never had won it before. So people who were on teams like Mike Brown was in Cleveland. It almost is a knock against them. All right. Sorry. Going back. So the trade was Jrue Holiday, Jrue Holiday and 2 picks for Anthony Simmons. After they did the physical on Holiday, they said that there were some things to look at, but not enough to cancel the trade. So they just asked that they remove the 2 second-round picks as part of the deal. And they agreed and so on and so forth. This just sucks for Jrue Holiday, who every single person who ever talks about that guy talks about how good a person he is, how he's such a team guy. And, the Boston Celtics are basically like, we're blowing it up because our guy's out for all the next season. We have no chance of winning, so we are going to get money off the books. And they sent him to kind of, unfortunately, basketball purgatory right now in Portland. There's not much to make of this trade other than it just should remind veterans how quickly someone else on their team got hurt, and they shipped him off as if he had done something wrong.
Cool.
Jrue Holiday, I have no opinion on him whatsoever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Same. This next story I do though, Kirk Cousins said he had mixed. I saw this. They were saying the first episode of Quarterback is out. I heard this on I was listening to NFL radio today, that he said he felt misled by what happened with the Falcons, and he might have re-signed with the Vikings if he knew about what the Falcons were going to do when they drafted Penix, et cetera. I mean, obviously, anybody who goes somewhere and something like this happens, they're going to feel misled. But what do you guys think about the Kirk Cousins thing? And he could have stayed with Minnesota if that was the case.
I'm still worried about this. I mean, if you remember this a couple months ago where they were talking about Atlanta eating a bunch and Kirk Cousins ends up. Now, so far, everyone's praising McCarthy so much that
we've been telling you, B. You just don't want to believe us.
That's because I'm going to be right. Training camp's open, and Kirk Cousins will not be there. I will, Penix will start even if he's there or not. And I think that's obvious. I mean, Kirk Cousins even seems to know it, or else he wouldn't be griping.
Yeah. No, we said that. We talking about JJ McCarthy starting for y'all. You ain't got to worry about Kirk Cousins having nothing to do with y'all.
Okay. I heard it here first.
That's one of the first times you ever doubted me.
Hey, man.
Kirk Cousins is clearly a man who wants a new home. And so my concern is nobody else. This is going to sound horrible. My concern is that no other quarterback gets hurt in training camp, and there's no place for him to go other than the Vikings, because I do think that he's gone. You're not going to put Penix in there with Cousins looking over his shoulder. It's a cruel thing to do. The most popular job on a team is the backup quarterback. But if obviously if somebody has a player go down, if Dak stubs his toe again in the preseason, obviously Kirk Cousins would be the guy who's going to be at the top of everybody's lists.
So I have a bet with 3 Falcons fans, and I said if Kirk Cousins and Penix are on the week 1 roster and they're both healthy, I said that Cousins were going to start because of money. I read an article, I don't know, maybe about 3 weeks ago, saying if they both end up on the roster, Penix is still going to start, and the Falcons are okay having a $27.5 million backup, which I'll believe it when I see it. But I think the Falcons are actually dumb enough to do that. So I'm gonna need Kirk Cousins to actually find a home somewhere. Somebody, I'm gonna lose my
I was
bet.
gonna say because I want in on that bet. You'll be here, I think, week 1, and so we'll be able to, I can get you a big golf shot, real big shot glasses, and we can do that.
Yeah, I'm gonna need somebody to get hurt second preseason game or something, so he can go over there. Because I think I'm definitely gonna lose. I think Penix. I don't think Kirk Cousins is ever gonna play a game again for the Falcons. I'm starting to think that.
Yeah. No way.
Agreed.
Well, that you heard here first.
Right.
I said that a long time ago.
Yeah, we figured that. I mean, this happens, right? Like you go to a team, you think you're doing, you're gonna start and get all this money and it's gonna be great, and they draft a quarterback. One of the best things I heard, I wish I knew the person's name because I dislike when you say, oh, I heard somewhere without being able to give the person credit, but it was somewhere I think in some radio personality, I think from Atlanta, from the A, was saying how he was like, if you've ever been poor and you get a chance to get some money, you're like, I'm not being poor again. He said the Falcons were quarterback poor. So when they had a chance, they had a quarterback and they had a chance to get another one, they were like, we're not going to be quarterback poor. So they grabbed another quarterback. Penix goes in way early for that draft. Like they could have probably kept Cousins and got one of those, a crazy defensive player, Jared Verse or something like that, and really had a run. I mean, I don't think Kirk Cousins was absolutely horrible. He played some bad games, but even those games were pretty close. Like a defensive stop, they would have been right there in most of those games. So, I mean, it's obvious you're going to feel like that, but that's what happens. You signed the money, you took the bread. That's what you got, bro.
You say these things happen, but it literally has never happened before where they signed someone to a massive deal, like superstar free agent, signing based on the money, and then drafted a first-round quarterback.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, but also you're talking about the Falcons. So it's not like they were just, just making they're not blowing your mind with the moves they're making on the roster by any means.
And that was the new GM's decision, which might make him the old GM's real soon if this doesn't pan out.
Yeah, well, Penix look pretty good, so I get it. But
we're gonna see. But that's a lot of money they're giving Kirk Cousins.
$90 million guaranteed. That contract is. Yeah.
Yep. No surprise. Big Kirk
Makes
dog.
LeBron look cheap.
Yep, big Kirk dog. Okay, so you got that. So then other football news, Darren Waller comes back. He unretires and then is traded from the Giants to the Dolphins as part of that. No, they traded a pick for him.
That was the whole thing.
They traded a pick
draft picks, like a 6th and a 7th round.
Yeah, so
they basically just said, yeah, you can have the rights because he's just going to play anymore, and they gave him they had to give him something. I think it's like a 6th and a 7th round pick.
Yeah. So does this do anything for y'all? Do y'all care about this at all?
I actually think Darren Waller can be a decent fantasy option because you have a quarterback who will be able to understand. He only likes to do two things: throw it real deep to Tyreek Hill, or throw it across the middle to someone else. So Darren Waller might be a decent option. But as far as football goes, no, he was traded for a 6th and 7th round pick. The thing he's most popular for is his wife leaving him when he got traded.
Oh, and his failed rap career as well too. Don't forget that.
He's still rapping. It ain't failed yet.
Oh, ain't failed yet. Oh, okay.
Yeah, he's still rapping.
Oh, my bad.
I didn't even know about his rap career.
Yeah.
I'll play.
More than I need.
It's on Madden. Nah. I mean, its best seasons were with the Raiders, and I was a Darren Waller fan, man. I wish the man well.
I thought he was a very good tight end for.
Yeah, he balled out, man. We played some good games on Madden, man. Shout out to Darren Waller. But I mean, it's interesting.
Like football, man. He came back. That's crazy, but yeah.
I guess I'm curious. Well, I mean, for me, jokingly, I think if you're gonna, decide if you're gonna play football, what a place to live. Put me in Miami too.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to film a music video on Saturday, you're right at the water. You're on the yacht. You got plenty of action. You got good weather, and then you actually have, to Brian's point, a team that's. I mean, I don't understand why the Dolphins are always so high praised in the last few years.
Yeah.
Because they don't ever do anything. I get like the roster or whatever. People are excited about McDaniel, but they never actually do anything.
When you don't have a quarterback, man, I mean, how far can you go? You don't have a quarterback.
Well, they signed him. They liked him. He plays some good games. They go to the playoffs. He gets hurt. He gets hurt again. It's kind of the same things. I mean, they went that one year against the Chiefs, right? Was that 2 years ago? And got
been there 5 years. They played one playoff game.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they're
It
still
ain't playoffs. It's a
they're still
playoff game. You can play off.
you're right. You're right. They still living off that. So I don't know what's gonna happen. I just never know what the Dolphins are doing. And within that, they trade Jalen Ramsey and Jonnu Smith to the two of their better players to the Steelers. I
Steelers.
mean,
Disagree on that.
well, for the Dolphins, I'm saying. I'm not saying they're best in the league, but for the Dolphins, I don't know who else you're saying
Look,
is much better than them.
they found a sucker. If you want to trade a defensive player, go to the Steelers. Steelers are they're number one in defensive spending the last 3 years. They're paying $7.5 million more to get Jalen Ramsey and getting rid of Micah Fitzpatrick, who they made the highest paid safety in NFL history just 3 years ago. The Steelers
Traded from the Dolphins too.
Yeah, the Steelers are just look. The best days of both of these players are behind them. Jalen Ramsey is not the player he used to be. He's only like name right now. He's a guy. But he was what's he doing in Dolphins? He was missing meetings, not listening to people, doing his own thing, which is one of the reasons why the Rams got rid of him, because he likes to do his own thing. He doesn't really fit in the structure of a defense. He just wants to kind of freelance a little bit, which always doesn't work. And he gets beat a lot. That's what people are not saying about Ramsey. Ramsey has gotten beat a lot the last 2-3 years since he left the Rams. Look, 3 straight years. It's going to be 4 straight years now after the Steelers, signed T.J. Watt in defensive spin. It's going to be 4 straight years. They're going to have to, spend the most money on defense. That's what the Giants and Steelers spend their money on defense. Meanwhile, the people like the Rams and Eagles, much better teams, they have cheap defenses. They don't spend that much money on defense. And we all know the Chiefs, they spend most of their money on offense. So, look, the Chiefs are just, I don't know. I don't. The Steelers, I used to think they were a flagship franchise. I just don't think about them like that anymore. Baltimore has pretty much copied what Pittsburgh did, but Baltimore does it better, and they sort of modernized it. They still run the ball and play defense, but they're a little more, I guess, flashy. They're more of a contender. Baltimore copied exactly what Pittsburgh did and made it better. And Pittsburgh is just like like James Harrison said, the good thing about Mike Tomlin is that he's a player's coach. The bad thing about Mike Tomlin is he's a player's coach. That whole team is just not going to win as currently constructed. And the thing is the Pittsburgh Steelers don't bottom out. They're not just going to tank a season and like win 3 games and try to get a quarterback or get a player or something. That's not what they do. They try to win all the time. That's their nature. That's their DNA, which is commendable. But I mean, they're equivalent to being an 8th seed in the NBA playoffs. I mean, they're not going to do anything. And it's just the same thing year in, year out. And that's what's frustrating with a lot of Steeler fans. And I know there's a lot of Steeler fans in the Bay Area, and they're just tired of the same old cycle with Tomlin and the team and everything. So, classic Steelers move, still getting defense, and it's not going to pay off for them in the end. So that's all.
Man, yeah.
I feel a
That's
little
a lot.
differently. Yeah, I feel a little differently. So I'm not going to talk about the franchises or any of that kind of stuff, but just about this trade. Micah Fitzpatrick, as you mentioned, was the highest paid safety in football.
Yep.
And Jalen Ramsey, while his best days are behind him as a Micah Fitzpatrick's probably, he's like a third of the cost. Right? He's on a 3-year, $30 million deal or something like that. If you need to get rid of an overpriced player who is in a position and you get back a player who's not equal, but not that much of a fall off. And yeah, I'm not saying they're great. This is not going to make the Steelers a Super Bowl contender, but they did save a ton of money in a hard cap league, which will allow them to sign other players to make the defense rounded out in other positions.
No, B. You got to look at it. The Steelers they're spending $7.5 million more for Ramsey. That's what they were talking about. Is like they just took back more money by they got rid of Fitzpatrick, but they took back more money.
That because they got the tight end. It's the player to player. I just looked up their contract.
Oh, okay, yeah. Okay, got it.
Right,
got it.
Fitzpatrick's 4 years, $73 million.
Got it.
And
Okay.
Jalen Ramsey, 1-for-1 position, is a $23 million.
Okay.
He's
Got it. Okay.
And
Glenn, any thoughts?
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Like in the overall, it's trading names.
Yeah. Because Miami had to unload him. Everybody knew Ramsey was going to be gone. It was just who was going to take him.
And everyone knew Minka was going to be gone.
Yeah.
Those two relationships didn't work. So
right.
But yeah, to me, this is not that big a deal. Jonnu probably gets to be the sacrificial lamb because they don't use a tight end like that over there anymore. Whereas the backup tight end for the Miami Dolphins when Johnny was out, when he got injured, blew up. So he's actually a good sleeper pickup.
And thing is, John. So now that they got Jonnu and they got Pat, I forgot his name. His last name starts with an F. I can't pronounce it. So it looks like Aaron Rodgers has the middle of the field to try to throw to those two guys and DK on the end. So yeah, we'll see what happens.
He doesn't use tight ends. He's never in history used tight ends.
I know. All right, he doesn't. He's not a tight end guy, exactly. But we'll see. We'll see. He might have to.
Yeah, well, that's all they put out there for him. Anyways, moving on.
Yeah, we're gonna see. I don't know. I don't think there's I'm kind of like y'all. It's tough to tell. You put somebody, I mean, with Tomlin and the rest of that defense, maybe with TJ Watt up there and kind of what the line does, Hayward and all that, maybe, but I mean, I don't think this puts him in there. Yeah, that's fair. Winning season, but wild card maybe, and then probably out in the first round. Pretty standard. So okay, it's pretty much our show, man. So let's get to the last few segments, starting with the game ball. That's Coop, your segment for exemplary performance in sports or life right now.
You want to start this one off?
Sure,
go ahead.
So my game ball goes to Cole Swider, the Lakers player who has been leading the team all but tonight's game. He was second in the team in scoring, I think. But anyways, while leading the team and scoring throughout the first preseason games. And he's been playing well. 20-something points in the first game. He had 13 rebounds, hitting threes, and just playing decent basketball. Not much going on in the world of sports. Not a lot of game balls to give out, so you got to dig deep. And Cole Swider playing well for the Lakers for a few different games is enough to get the game ball right now.
My game ball goes to the Baltimore Ravens organization. I know Justin Tucker got suspended for 10 games, but Baltimore didn't care. They just cut him. With that whole the way that this whole Deshaun Watson situation played out in public, that's bad for business, for anybody, for the Ravens, for the NFL, this whole Justin Tucker thing. I don't even think the Ravens have any information about what actually happened, and I don't even think they even care. They just got rid of Justin Tucker, which was the right thing to do. I think Justin Tucker's career is over. It's kind of sad. He was a really good kicker. Didn't have a good season last year, and this is probably why. But I think getting rid of a kicker like Tucker was probably hard for them to do because I think that's the only team he's ever played on. But the Ravens made the right move by getting rid of him because you can find a kicker pretty much almost anywhere. You don't have to be like the Niners and draft him in the third round just to miss kicks. But yeah, so I'm giving it to the Ravens.
Yeah, he made it a little
There's
easier.
A whole bunch of teams. I mean, how many of those Charger teams were a kicker away from doing something?
Yeah,
but
he made
not always as easy. Justin Tucker was one of the greatest, but given what he has going on, you got to
get rid of him. Yeah,
he was trash last year. Also, like he didn't make it. He wasn't
great. But now we know why. His head was in a different place.
Right. The kicker is it's a mental position. That's what a lot of them say.
Well, he's up out of there. Shit. Why are you following Deshaun Watson's footsteps? You get what you get, bro.
Right, that part.
Mine is actually for the Florida Panthers. I thought it was pretty cool. I don't know if y'all saw during their parade. They actually used they broke up the ice that they skated on during the Stanley Cup, put it in water guns, and on the parade route, shot it out at the fans. If you have if you're in a place like Florida, which is also warm during your parade on the middle end of June in Florida. Cool, the water gun, we're outside, but also it's Stanley Cup ice. It's a cool concept. I thought that was pretty cool.
Novelty,
yeah, very, very, very much so. So that's my game ball. Hogwash, Brian's segment he came up with when one day he said something was a bunch of hogwash. We all laughed and we made it a recurring segment. So what do you guys got currently that is a bunch of hogwash?
Well, B closes the last segment. So go ahead, B, start this one.
All right. So you know what's hogwash is basically the WNBA right now. Now, I actually really like the WNBA, and I actually think that the product has gotten significantly better. But recently, with a sale of the New York Liberty, they announced that the entire WNBA is worth $3.5 billion, with the individual teams now averaging $269 million in value. This has all gone up over the last year, with some teams being worth 180% of what they were in years prior. Meanwhile, Caitlin Clark makes $76,000 a year. She has literally created billions of dollars of value for teams she's not even on.
Yeah,
It's true.
And gets paid $78,000 a year when executives and coaches probably get bonuses that are exceeding her paycheck. And that's not to say that others are getting paid what they're worth. I mean, Candace Parker was on a podcast recently and stopped them and said, let's be clear. The WNBA was my summer job. It was what I did when I was in the off season.
Right.
My real job was playing overseas, where they respected us and paid us like athletes at the right level. And so the WNBA, congratulations. That's a huge, huge thing to have $269 million average teams and $3.4 billion. But and I'm not saying you need to pay them like the men or anything but you've got to make it so that people don't make as much money working at the local fast food place. I'm not going to name names or call anyone out, but when you can go get a job,
Dairy Queen. Oh my bad.
I'm gonna say, I don't think you make that much, even not in Indy, but she's making comparable to a professional somewhere. An accountant or something in Indiana's making what she's making.
Man, did you read, Brian, that they're going to add, I think, 6 or 8 more teams by 2030? All these cities got awarded new franchises.
Yeah, I don't know that makes a lot of sense because you're going to liquidate the talent.
Exactly.
The NBA went through the same problem
Yep.
in the 80s when they started adding teams, and it went from having 3 all-stars or future Hall of Famers down to 1 or 2, and the product suffered. That's not to say that there might not be some others out there, but right now you're not having there's not a problem where you're looking at the end of the bench on the Indiana team or a Minnesota team, the Lynx, and seeing somebody who should be a starter.
Right.
That's when you need to expand. But what happens anytime you get a valuation where they say the average team is worth $269 million? Guess what happens when your average valuation for a team is $269 million? The fee to buy into the league for those expansion teams becomes 50, 60, 70, 80 million. And that money goes to all of the owners of the other teams who, for all that valuation, have no cash. Like, you don't get cash from having a valuation of $369 million. There's nothing you can do with that other than go, I got $369 million team. These teams going out there where they start selling them for $50, $60 million, and a big chunk of that goes to the owners. That's a way for them to cash out on this success. So I understand what they're doing. They're going to cash out on the success. Ultimately, I think that hurts their product. I didn't know about that.
Yeah, that's where I was going.
WNBA hogwash. It's not an equitable approach, and it's exactly how you have people like Caitlin Clark start playing on barnstorming teams because they get paid few $100,000 in comparison to $76,535.
She's making much more in endorsements. Coop.
Yeah. My hogwash. I unfortunately I was on my Sirius XM radio. I got different stations on there, and I think I accidentally hit one of those little sports stations, and there was a caller talking about how the reason why some NFL franchises aren't successful is because of money, and that's going to be my hogwash, because the notion that you need hella money to be competitive in the NFL is BS. Every team in the NFL has money. You got Cleveland's owner, Jimmy Haslam. He's one of the richest owners in the NFL. The reason why Cleveland sucks is not because of money. They suck because he meddles in their football decisions, and he makes bad choices like wanting Shedeur Speed Racer Sanders on his team. That's why they suck. David
That's
Tepper,
the quarterback you're going to clown him for?
What?
Wow.
I'm just saying.
Think he's
the most recent mistake.
Okay,
yeah, Speed Racer. Yeah, got his like 4/5 speeding ticket. And then the owner for the Carolina Panthers, I think he's the richest owner in NFL, David Tepper. He can't make good decisions. That's why his team sucks. And Glenn, you're a Raider fan. Now is the first time, I would say, since 2016 to be bullish as a Raider fan. I really think that. And the reason why the Raiders haven't been good before, it had nothing to do with money. It's because who they keep hiring is coach and GM. I mean, you had Antonio Pierce last year. I mean, how far do you expect to get with somebody like him as the coach? And then you got a team like Oklahoma City who just won the title. Oklahoma City ain't got a boatload of money. The reason why they're good is because ownership and management pick the right GM and head coach. They hire the right people. They make good decisions. That's how you win in sports. And the teams, all these teams in the NFL got a bunch of money. You make bad decisions. I mean, this is what happens. I mean, I know My team, for a fact, they hired Jim Tom Sula and Mike Singletary. It was some of the worst football years in my life.
Can't win with them.
I had enough common sense to know this wasn't going to work. It had nothing to do with money. 49ers had money. They just wanted to be cheap on coaches, and that's what happened. So, yeah, just teams got to make just better decisions on who they hire. That's all it is. That's my hogwash.
Fair. I don't have one. Y'all are good. Minute to win it. I'm going back to my usual. Just thank everybody for listening. Appreciate all the comments, the subscriptions. Anybody, like I said, who recently subscribed for a long time. People that tell us when we see them that they listen to the show or bring comments. It's fun and we appreciate you. That's all I got.
Yeah, I'm gonna say the same thing. In a couple of weeks when we do this again, I'll have a minute to win it. For us, NFL is going to be my 10 things you're going to see this year in the NFL. I'm gonna have 10 things, my minute to win it when we do this in a couple of weeks.
Curious,
I'm good. B.
So first and foremost, my heart goes out to the 110 people who just recently died in the catastrophic flooding in Texas. I mean, it is the worst version of an incident like this. And here's the problem, and the reason why I bring it up is that you have politicians and Fox News who are trying to put it all on the National Weather Service and said they didn't tell us that there was going to be this much rain. They didn't tell us that these storms were coming and they were going to be this serious, all while forgetting that they about 2 months ago gutted the National Weather Service, and all the people who were supposed to make these predictions had been fired. And we always talk about, with all these Trump administration decisions, you're going to fuck around and find out. And this is the worst instance of that, because so many of those people were kids at camps. They didn't vote for the lunatic in office. They didn't do anything other than go to camp and end up dead. So that's the first thing. It's sad but people need to remember, it's when these things happen, but people need to remember that actions have consequences, and you need to hold people accountable for those consequences. Gut the National Weather Service 2 months ago. Unexpected storm raises the water level 29 feet in 45 minutes, and a bunch of people die and perish. That's one. Number two, at the same time that this was happening, these kids are perishing. It was just yesterday that this lunatic in chief sent 20 plus military trucks to MacArthur Park to surround a camp of kids who were doing TikToks. No arrests were made, but a bunch of people hopped out with military weapons and surrounded a park in Los Angeles to create chaos and fear and attack children yet again. Just remember that with this new big bill that got passed, unfortunately, what you see happening in Los Angeles is the blueprint, and it will be happening in every single major city that has any type of a Latin presence, because it's clear that they're going more after the Latin American population than they are going over other populations who might be undeclared. And that is horrific, because they have a larger budget than the Russian military for ICE now. Let that sink in. Anyways, last thing I want to say is rest in peace to my uncle. We had a celebration of life for him not recently. Just recently. It was in Minnesota. It was at a park. We had 200 people, standing room only. People come out at a park. He was a very big deal in the ultimate Frisbee community. We started at 2:00, went a couple of hours there, and people were there at 10:00 when the park shut down, having a few beers, telling great stories, throwing Frisbees around, and doing his memory well. So rest in peace, Hunk, and I hope all's well.
Yeah,
definitely. Sports Counterpoints, July the 8th, 2025. We will catch y'all next time. Peace.